Samaria was in trouble. A terrible famine gripped the city. Food was scarce and prices soared. People were desperate. Starvation loomed over the city like a dark cloud. King Jehoram, Israel's leader, was helpless. He felt the weight of his people's suffering.
The king blamed Elisha, the prophet of God, for the city's misfortune. Elisha had a history of speaking God's word and seeing miracles unfold, but in the king's desperation he saw Elisha not as a beacon of hope, but as a source of his problems. He was angry and afraid, his heart hardened by the suffering around him.
Elisha, however, remained a source of hope for the people. One day, Elisha boldly declared, "Elisha, this time tomorrow there will be plenty of food in Samaria. Flour and barley will be sold cheaply in the city's gates. Abundance will replace scarcity. A miracle is on the horizon." His words offered a ray of hope in the darkness. But could such a dramatic turnaround truly be possible? Could God really intervene in such a powerful way? The people of Samaria desperately clung to Elisha's words, their hearts yearning for the promised relief. Among those who heard Elisha's prophecy was a royal official, a man of position and authority. Yet he was skeptical. The official found it hard to believe. How could such a drastic change occur in just one day? The famine had been so severe, the situation so desperate.
Even if the Lord were to open the windows of heaven, could this really happen?
The official's doubt reflected the fear that had gripped the city. He struggled to see beyond the current circumstances, to grasp the power of God to intervene. Unbeknownst to the people of Samaria, God was already working behind the scenes, orchestrating events that would soon unfold in a miraculous way. Outside the city walls, 4 lepers, ostracized because of their disease, faced a terrible choice. They were not only battling the physical and social isolation that came with their condition, but also the dire consequences of a severe famine that had gripped the land. Starvation threatened to take their lives. The city of Samaria was under siege, and resources were dwindling rapidly. The lepers knew that staying where they were meant certain death from hunger. Desperate, they decided to approach the enemy Aramean camp, hoping for mercy, however slim the chance. They reasoned that if the Arameans spared them, they would live. If not, they would die. But it was a risk they were willing to take.
As they approached the enemy camp, they found it eerily deserted. The Arameans had vanished without a trace. The silence was deafening, and the lepers were filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. Confusion turned to amazement as they explored further. They cautiously moved from tent to tent, expecting at any moment to encounter an enemy soldier. But there was no one. The camp was filled with abandoned supplies, food, clothing, gold, and weapons. It was as if the Arameans had left in a hurry, leaving behind everything of value.
God had caused the Aramean army to hear the sounds of a mighty host, sending them fleeing in terror, leaving everything behind. The lepers, once outcasts, now found themselves in the midst of an unexpected bounty, a testament to the divine intervention that had turned their plight into a moment of providence.
The lepers, initially hesitant, stood at the edge of the camp, their hearts pounding with uncertainty. They had been outcasts for so long, shunned by society and left to fend for themselves. The sight before them was almost too good to be true. But as they began to gather the provisions, their hesitation turned into determination. They filled their arms with food and supplies, their minds racing with the possibilities of what this discovery could mean for them and their people.
"This is wrong! We can't keep this to ourselves!" one of them exclaimed, his voice filled with a mix of guilt and urgency. The others nodded in agreement, realizing the gravity of the situation.
"We have to share this incredible news with the starving people in Samaria," another leper said passionately, his eyes shining with hope. They knew that their discovery could mean the difference between life and death for many.
Racing back to the city gates, their hearts pounded with a mix of fear and excitement, they had to get the word out before it was too late. They shouted out their discovery, their voices echoing through the streets. The people of Samaria had to know what they had found. Their voices filled with urgency and excitement, they recounted their tale to anyone who would listen. The news spread quickly, carried on the wings of hope and desperation.
"Everyone, listen! We found an abandoned camp with food and supplies." One of the lepers called out, his voice breaking with emotion. The crowd around him grew larger, their faces a mix of disbelief and hope.
Come quickly, there's enough for everyone, another leper added, waving his arms to beckon more people over. The crowd surged forward, eager to see for themselves.
Their words spread through the city like wildfire. The news of the abandoned camp and its bounty reached every corner of Samaria, igniting a spark of hope in the hearts of the people. People poured out of their homes, their initial disbelief giving way to cautious hope. They had been through so much, and the idea of relief seemed almost too good to be true. Their initial disbelief giving way to cautious hope, they began to make their way towards the city gates. Could it really be true? Could their suffering finally be coming to an end?
Could it be true? One person asked, their voice trembling with emotion. The crowd around them murmured in agreement, their faces reflecting the same mix of hope and doubt.
Had God really intervened in such a miraculous way? Another person wondered aloud, their eyes lifting to the sky as if seeking confirmation from above. The idea of divine intervention filled them with awe and gratitude.
The city of Samaria was transformed, as hope and relief washed over the people like a long-awaited rain. The once desolate streets were now filled with the sounds of joy and celebration. The people of Samaria had been given a second chance, and they embraced it with open arms. Section 6. Fear gives way to faith. As the people reached the Aramean camp and witnessed the abandoned provisions with their own eyes, doubt transformed into overwhelming joy. It was a scene of incredible abundance. Everything Elisha had prophesied had come true. Food, once so scarce, was now plentiful. The city erupted in celebration. The famine was broken. God's faithfulness was evident. The impossible had become reality. The story of the miraculous siege lift became a testament to the power of faith and the boundless nature of God's provision. Section 7. Abundance out of scarcity. The once empty streets of Samaria now teemed with life and laughter. Families who had been on the brink of starvation were now sharing meals together, their hearts filled with gratitude. The transformation was complete. The experience left an indelible mark on the people of Samaria. They had witnessed firsthand the truth of God's word and the incredible ways he could work. Their faith, once shaken, was now deeply rooted in the reality of God's love and provision. Section 8. The price of doubt. Tragically, the skeptical royal official who doubted Elisha's words met an unfortunate end.
As the people rushed out to gather provisions, he was trampled in the chaos.
His doubt cost him his life, a stark reminder of the consequences of failing to trust in God's promises. His story serves as a cautionary tale, highlighting the importance of aligning our hearts and minds with God's word, even when circumstances seem dire. It reminds us that God is faithful, even when we struggle to believe. Section 9. Trusting in God's timing. The miraculous siege lift stands as a timeless testament to the power of faith and the faithfulness of God. In the ancient city of Samaria, the people faced insurmountable odds. Surrounded by enemies, they were on the brink of despair. Yet they held on to their faith, believing that God would deliver them. It reminds us that God is always at work, even when we can't see it. In our own lives, we often face challenges that seem impossible to overcome. We may feel abandoned or forgotten, but the story of Samaria teaches us that God is always present, working behind the scenes. He can bring abundance out of scarcity, hope out of despair, and joy out of sorrow. Just as he provided for the people of Samaria, he can provide for us in our times of need. When we trust in his timing, we open ourselves to the blessings he has in store for us, and victory out of defeat. The return of the victorious soldiers symbolizes the triumph of faith over fear. It shows us that no matter how dire our circumstances may seem, with faith, we can overcome any obstacle. The story challenges us to trust in God's timing, to be patient and wait for his perfect plan to unfold. Patience is a virtue that is often tested, but it is through waiting that we grow stronger in our faith, to believe in his promises, and to hold on to the hope that he will fulfill them. The ancient prophets spoke of God's promises, and the people believed. Their faith was not in vain as God delivered them in their time of need, and to hold on to hope even in the darkest of times. In the stillness of the night, when all seems lost, it is hope that lights our way. The people of Samaria held on to hope, and it was this hope that sustained them through their darkest hours. For when we put our faith in God, we open ourselves up to the possibility of experiencing His miraculous power in our own lives. The sunrise over Samaria symbolizes a new beginning, a fresh start. It reminds us that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will always come. By trusting in God's timing, we allow His light to shine through us, bringing hope and healing to our lives.